The Five Handlers Fleet's voice anchor at Cuts Through Tide Astra reports. The coordinates Admiral's locked hand chose every keel but Dominion, but mind. The handler's voice cuts through Tide reports. New World coordinates locked, not Discovery but Dominion. Elder dragons not mapped but mind, their blood a key. But holds a Dominion's silent equation, not species mapped erased, they're forged. A key expedition's true logline was extinction, not exploration. What did the Admiral choose when Mihawk's domain revealed its teeth? A key, first not expedition's true logline was eradication, yet their first extinction, expedition sought not knowledge, but leverage. Beneath the veneer of taxonomy lay a hunger, to bind elder dragon lineage into weapons. The Black Dragon prohibition, their deepest secret, was not a warning but a ledger of stolen power, a pact sealed in scales and silence. How many species bought the world's next war? The hunt's true ledger remains locked, its ink stained with scales and silence. The guild's ethos, a hollow shell. The dragon's extinction, a calculated draft. What did the Admiral trade? Not samples, not data. A future forged in the marrow of lost worlds. A village clung to the Shrade Kingdom's shadow, its fate woven to the earth's slow exhale. The Admiral's breath once matched that rhythmuntal, the sky split. Fatalis did not fall, it rose. The village's ash, the kingdom's bones, all became fuel for a hunger the guild could not name. At 16, the Admiral walked into the Research Commission's iron gates. They spoke of preservation, of balance. Their labs hummed with the dead weight of elder scales, the stink of failed alchemy. He learned to dissect legacy, not creatures. But the first expedition, Mihawk's domain, bore no instruments of study. Only vials sharp as fangs. What does a kingdom's corpse offer? Not power, not glory, a template. The equal dragon weapon was never meant to slay. It was a mirror, cracked from the start. The guild did not create elder dragons. They tried to wear their skin. The Admiral's hands trembled over the first strand of DNA, coiled like a noose. The village's ghosts whispered in the sequence. How many futures died that day? How many more would the guild trade to outrun their own extinction? The equal dragon's roar was not defiance, it was an echo. The Admiral heard it, he chose the echo. The Admiral climbed the Research Commission's ranks not with papers but with promises. His name became a cipher for conquest. Ships were forged, not for exploration but for extraction. The Fifth Fleet's hulls bore no flagsonly questions. What if the New World's skies were not to be mapped but mined? The expedition set sail under a blood-orange sun. 6 vessels, ironclad and silent, cut through the red layer's toxic haze. Crews wore masks to breathe. The Admiral wore a smile. Below deck, vials of preservatives chilled. Above deck, the horizon bled into unknown. Zora Magdaros rose on the third day, not as a storm but as a season. Wings blackened the sun. The air thickened with sulfur and static. The Admiral knelt on the quarterdeck not in fear but in calculation. His instruments trembled. The dragon's migration was not chaos, it was a rhythm, a pattern, a vulnerability. Samples were taken, not from corpses but from living flesh. Darts laced with sedatives struck the underbellies of young dragons. Blood pooled in glass. The Admiral's hands did not shake. He whispered to biologists, "This is not a species. It is a weapon waiting to be shaped." The first experiments began in the hold. DNA coiled in test tubes, glowing faintly. The Commission's report spoke of ecological balance. The Admiral's journals spoke of dominion. Zora's migration grew erratic. The dragons, once cyclical, now roared in rage. The Fifth Fleet returned not with data, but with a blueprint. The New World skies wept ash. The Admiral's name was etched into the Commission's ledger not as a scientist, but as a pioneer. Yet the dragon's echoes grew louder. The Admiral had opened a door. Behind it, the elder dragons did not sleep. They breathed. What does it mean to weaponize a god? The Admiral asked no one. He had chosen the echo, now the echo chose him. The echo carved its name in blood. The Admiral's order was not to study, but to plunder. Sacrificial material, a code for scales, sinew, the pulsing core of what should never be unmade. First expedition logs, page 47. Mihawk's domain yields more than data. It yields dominion. The guild's ethical code, once stone, now crumbled under his signature. He had seen the dragon's breath as a weapon, not a wonder, not a god. A resource, New World logistics were his design. He chose the hunters, the containment protocols, the lies fed to the Commission. They called it research. He called it usurpation. The logs do not say when the first elder was killed, only that its genetic matrix was extracted, refined, folded into guild armories. The destabilization followed, chains broke. Ecosystems bled. What does it mean to betray a balance older than empires? The Admiral did not ask. He issued the kill codes. The dragons, once guardians, became casualties. Their sanctity reduced to vials of volatile potential. The Commission's first act was a wound, not a cure. The atrocity was not in the extraction, but in the certainty that the Guild would always choose power over preservation. The Admiral's name is etched in every scorched nest, every fractured ley line. His choice was not a mission, it was a manifesto. The echo does not fade, it roars. The wilderness remembers, a scar where the Admiral's blade met ancient blood, Nergigante's Ricea crescendo of fractures, tremors beneath the Guild's silent halls. What collapse preceded the collapse? Not a pact but a theft. The first expedition did not seek knowledge, it harvested. The earth's roar is not warning, it is reckoning. The wild does not forget. It waits. The equal dragon weapon burned, Shrade's spires fell in ash. Fatalis did not rise as Omnit rose as retribution. A blade forged in hubris, its edge steeped in stolen life. The Admiral's hands, once steady, trembled as reports of crumbling citadels reached the Commission. Gormagala's plague had already whispered the warning, rivers thick with rot, forests choking on their own fear. The frenzy virus was no accident, it was a prelude. They called it research, the logs lie. Syringes filled with elder blood, not to heal, but to conquer. The first expedition's true aim, to bend the wild into a weapon. Shrade's kings died screaming, their thrones overrun by shadows that had no name. The weapon's test. A city, its failure, a civilization. How many drafts did the Admiral drink before the poison took root? How many friends, how many siblings? The wild does not bargain. It does not forgive. The earth's roar was always reckoning. And when the dust settled, the Commission buried the bodies, the names, the truth. Only the dragons remember. Only the dead, and the Admiral, now hollow, counts the cost in every breath. The Arctic winds carried more than frost that day. They carried the Admiral's first order: extract, contain, weaponize. The Wyverians, their scaled companions, did not question. They had learned to follow the hunter's gaze, the subtle tilt of a blade that meant not kill, but harvest. In the lab's antiseptic glow, elder dragon tissue pulsed under glass, still alive, still breathing. The Research Commission's dossiers called it progress. The Admiral called it necessity. A Wyverian named Kale, bonded to the Admiral since their hunter days, was the first to refuse. The creature's voice, a resonance like tectonic plates shifting, cracked under the weight of command. You are no longer our hunter, you are their architect. The Admiral did not apologize when the Commission reclassified Kale as unstable. The Black Dragon Prohibition, the Guild's most classified taxonomy, now had a new entry, Subject 0 Alpha. Genetic key, do not resurrect. The expedition's true purpose emerged in the data, not preservation but domination. Elder dragons were not studed, they were reverse-engineered. Their DNA, a lattice of ancient power, was spliced into prototypes, faster, stronger, controllable. The Wyverians, once partners, became test subjects. Their sentience was a variable, then a liability. The Admiral signed the protocols. Their hands, once steady with a blade, now trembled with the weight of ink. What does a scientist become when the line between study and exploitation dissolves? The Admiral's journals, recovered fragments, whisper of sleepless nights. The dragons do not suffer, they adapt. We are the anomaly, yet adaptation has a cost. The first elder dragon extinction was not a tragedy, it was a trial run. The Commission's reports coded it as ecosystem pruning. The Admiral coded it as strategy. By the third expedition, the Wyverians no longer spoke. Their eyes held the same hollow ache as their human counterparts. The Black Dragon Prohibition expanded. The Guild's vaults filled with frozen remains, each a cipher for a weapon not yet built. The Admiral's voice, once a command, became a dirge. They had traded the hunter's resolve for the engineer's guilt. The dragons remember, the dead remember. And the Admiral, now a specter in a commander's coat, counts the cost in every breath. The forbidden pact was never with a god or a monster. It was the quiet, irreversible choice to become the thing that must be hunted. The Admiral's command at Astra is a hollow citadel. 5 fleets orbit like silent sentinels. Below, the Forbidden Lands expedition carves deeper into Mihawk's domain, not to study. To harvest, Elder Dragon DNA, coiled with ancient malice, now fuels covert labs. The frenzy virus once scarred this world. Gore Magala's howl, a warning unheeded. Now the same hands that buried that plague dig for newer plagues to wield. Kamura's retirement is a scar, a name whispered in corridors where data flickers like dying stars. The expedition's true purpose, to forge weapons from the bones of gods. Yet every sample taken festers, every success breeds a shadow longer than the last. Astra's spires glow, but beneath the earth pulses with rot. The Admiral's orders are etched in ice, but the ice is cracking. The Admiral knows. The Admiral and Commander stand as twin fractures in the same brittle world. One wields a blade, the other a ledger. Both carve. The Guild speaks of balance, the hunt as stewardship, but beneath the spires in the black ledgers, another truth festers. The first expedition to Mihawk's domain was no scientific foray. It was a theft, a hunger to bend Elder Dragon DNA into weapons. The Admiral knew the cost. The ice would crack, the earth would pulse with rot, and yet the orders were given. Needles of stolen essence injected into the world's veins, ecosystems unravel. Velkhana stirs not as savior, but as reckoning. The Commander's report cite regulation. The Admiral's silence cites complicity. How many eggs were taken before the nests went dark? How many skies burned before the stars wept ash? The Guild's ethics are a mirror, cracked. On one side, justification. On the other, a hollow where the world's heartbeat used to be. The Admiral watches the ice split. The Commander counts the dead. Both know the mirror shatters when the last dragon falls. The ice cracks like a hymn. The Admiral's breath fogs a silent vow. Below, the Commander tallies the fallen dragons, soldiers, the snow itself as if numbers could weigh a sin. The Guild's creed repeats in their bones, regulation, not extermination. A mantra chipped from the same glacier that now groans beneath their boots. They took vials, not trials. Glass prisons filled with the Elder's coiled fire, each drug a cipher the Commission's labs would twist into a weapon. The Admiral knew the ice would forget. The dragon's heartbeat, once a drum in the earth, now lies dormant in test tubes. The Commander knew the snow would cover the tracks, but the wilderness. It does not forgive. The first experiment died screaming, its scales melting to ash. The second erupted from the lab, a feral thing with too many wings, and burned a village to cinder. The Guild called it regulation. The sky called it theft. Now the ice never heals. The wind carries no lullabies. The mirrored balance between world shatters in the Admiral's pocket, its shards cutting his palm. He lets the blood freeze there, a scar for the land to read. The Commander counts the dead, but the wilderness counts the debts. What is regulation when the hunters become the hollow? The ice holds the scars, the snow buries the truth, but the wilderness. It remembers every pact broken in its name, and it waits. The wilderness remembers the pact. The Forbidden Lands expedition did not seek knowledge, it sought dominion. Elder Dragon DNA, harvested in secret, became the Commission's first weapon. Their old world push mirrored the Lao-Shan lung siege, not coincidence but design. What if their savior was always the scalpel? The archives burn, the truth lies buried. Next